Good morning, guys. One of the most amazing things we can do as human beings, as Maya Angelou reminds us today, is we can turn our struggles into triumphs. We can take defeats, losses, pain, evil, and through the power and control of our mind, we can turn it into our greatest victories, our greatest moments in life, our greatest service to others. So let's remember this advice from Maya Angelou today. It's up to you. If you are willing to look at some of the moments in your life that have caused you the most pain, the most darkness, and use your powerful mind, your thinking, and go perhaps alone and go into deep thought as she did to learn from other human beings, you can flip it and turn it all around and create the most powerfully positive force in this world that comes from you and is shared with others. Let's apply this today and forever. Have a great morning, everyone.
Want to be happy? Build a life, not just a business. Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know you've got more inside you. You've got Michael Jordan level genius at something. So today, let's live your best belief life and get some amazing motivation from the one and only John Assaraf.
What if every day when you woke up, okay, you did this? You write out, okay, on a sheet of paper on your computer, all right, I'm so happy and grateful for the fact that I am now earning. I'm so happy and grateful for the fact that I am now earning, and put a number there. I'm now earning whatever. Let's say you're making $10,000, whether it's a day, a week, or a month. I'm now earning $20,000. Okay, I'm now earning. And then in the very next step, you started to see yourself earning that amount of money. You started to see yourself and how you felt. You start to see yourself and how many people you would impact. You started to see yourself as you upgraded your knowledge and your skills, and you developed, and you started to feel proud, and you started to feel in alignment with making that amount of money. Okay, so you started to visualize. Why? Because visualization is simulation, and you start to fire off the neurons in your brain, right? You start to fire off the neurons in your brain. The neurons that fire together will wire together. That's part one. Then, what would you need to believe? What would you need to believe, all right, in order to earn twice as much money? What would you need to believe about yourself? Right? What would you need to think? And then what would you need to do that day, right? That week, that month, right? So in my trunk, when you set a goal, like you just said, I'm so happy now earning $2 trillion company. When you set that goal and you haven't built $1 million company, your brain deletes it because it activates the uncertainty and fear centers. So set a goal that's just outside of your comfort zone, all right? Just outside of your comfort zone that scares you a little bit, but also encourages you and inspires you. So what would you need to believe? What would you need to do? What would you need to think? And then what skills would you need to upgrade? Whose help would you need in order to make that a reality? So we go from ideation or imagination. We go from ideation and imagination, which is the Einstein part of the brain, all right? And then we ask ourselves all those other questions so that now we could put a path towards that.
Prime is I actually, have all my life's vision and purpose and my goals on a laminated sheet in my bathroom. And so while I'm brushing my teeth, I'm priming my brain with what I wanted to focus on, what beliefs I want, what goals I wanted to accomplish. All of your vision, your goals, your beliefs, your habits are in your head. They're in your brain. And so why not prime it with what it is you want instead of what it is you don't want?
Yes.
How do you grow if you're new in business? And the answer is
the more methodically you can start your business from thinking about your marketing and sales first, meaning how are you going to brand your product or service so it stands out from the competition? Number two, what is the one or two primary method that you are going to use to generate a stream of qualified leads? Now, in the world of lead generation, you can be advertising on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. You could be doing blogs, videos, you could be doing articles, you could be doing infographics, and the list goes on, including direct mail. So the question is, which one should you be doing? And the answer is, it depends. Now, pay close attention. Depending on your skill and depending on your ability to invest money, whenever you're doing any type of marketing, what you're really doing is you are looking to buy information to see which channel works best for your type of product or business. Now, some products or services don't warrant advertising because the cost of advertising is way too high. So you may have to go to a direct selling model. But other products and services deem you being able to advertise on many of the social media channels, and for some of you, radio and television. But in order to be effective in marketing and sales, what you have to understand is marketing is a science and an art. And in order to get better at marketing, you're either going to have to do it yourself, get help doing it, get it done for you, or don't do it. Now, in the world of so many options, what you've got to discover is this. Who is your ideal avatar or client profile? That's question number one. And when you understand if it's a male or female, what age group they are, when you understand what is their socioeconomic status, when you understand where do they go to find the solution that they're looking for that your product or service does for them, then you can start to put whether it's non-paid content or paid content in the flow of where they are in order to create what I call is a sales process. And a sales process is simply a way of thinking about generating leads, qualifying the leads, converting them, meaning getting them to buy from you, and then if they don't buy from you, then nurturing them until they either buy from you or refer somebody to you. All of this can be thought out in advance, and when you take the time to work on your business instead of in your business trying 500 different things, then you're able to quickly solve the little riddle of being an entrepreneur, and that is getting leads, converting them, and creating predictable cash flow and profits. When we procrastinate, in 2 out of 3 cases, it's a protective mechanism. It protects us. So there is something called the law of secondary gains. Can somebody type that in? The law of secondary gains. And I'm going to give you 2 other laws, but the law of secondary gains, all right, says this, that when we behave in a way like procrastination, yes, we're not doing the thing that we say we want to do, need to do, or should do because we don't want to do it. We're doing it because somehow there's another gain that we are getting. Does that make sense? So let me give you an example. A secondary gain might be something like this. Let's say I don't take action on completing a project that I have. I don't take action on studying. I don't take action on something that I know I want to do or should do. So I get the first gain by not taking action because I get some kind of relief, right? And the question is, relief from what? So what about this? What about thinking about procrastination like this in this particular context? If I don't take action consistently, is it possible that I'm actually having a secondary gain, like I feel safe? I feel safe. Can you feel safe in your comfort zone? Can you feel safe in the event that you take action? Let's say your work is criticized. If you take action and you fail, if you take action and you're embarrassed or ashamed or ridiculed or judged. So can you see that instead of being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, judged, or failing, or disappointing yourself again, it's easier not to take action because you don't want to deal with the embarrassment, shame, guilt, rejection, etc. Think about this. Are people afraid, some people afraid of public speaking? Are people afraid of public speaking? Right? Well, some people are, some people are not, but let's talk about the people who say they're afraid of public speaking. Maybe they want to speak in public, but in the event they do, if they get on a camera like this and they fumble and they mess up and the wrong words come out, or they think that they don't look really great and people are going to embarrass them or make them feel ashamed or ridicule them or judge them. If they think those are possibilities, isn't it easier to say, I don't want to publicly speak? So we don't publicly speak. That's the first gain. But the secondary gain is I avoid being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, judged, disappointed, embarrassed, etc. Does that make sense? So sometimes procrastination is because of a secondary gain. So here's what I want you to do. Does this make sense? First and foremost, everything that I teach you always is based on the latest neuroscience, okay? And understanding how to get yourself to use your brain better. So the law of secondary gains is saying that when I'm procrastinating, I'm getting a greater benefit somewhere else as a result of the procrastination. What's the number one reason we procrastinate? Is it because we want to? Have you ever heard of the law of secondary gain? So think about this for just a minute. When you procrastinate, is there a benefit? When you procrastinate, is there a benefit? Think of a secondary benefit. Is it possible, pay close attention, is it possible that when we procrastinate, maybe we're protecting ourselves? Have you ever thought about that? When I procrastinate, maybe I'm protecting myself. And so the question is, protecting myself from what? When I procrastinate, maybe I'm not doing what I need to do or want to do. I get that. But maybe I'm also protecting myself. The question is, protecting myself from what? Right? So think about this. Let me put a little meat around the bone for you, okay? When we procrastinate, a secondary benefit could be that we are fearful of, let's say, being embarrassed. I'll give you a couple of examples. So if I take the action that I need to take or want to take, whether it's asking for a raise, whether it's leaving my job and trying to find something new, leaving a relationship I'm not happy in, going across the room and asking a man or a woman what their name is, starting, a new career, doing something sometimes has known and unknown consequences associated with it. So if we are afraid that if we take action and the action doesn't result in the desired outcome that we want, is it possible that the fear of failing or the fear of disappointing yourself or the fear of being embarrassed or the fear of being ashamed or the fear of being ridiculed or the fear of disappointing yourself one more time or the fear of losing money, is it possible that when your subconscious mind, is processing the potential consequences of the behavior, is it possible that as a protective mechanism, we procrastinate? Is it possible that, our $100 billion biocomputer, what I call is the Frankenstein's monster part of the brain, right? Is it possible that that part of the brain is causing the behavior we call procrastination, right? So is it possible that procrastination is, in many cases, a secondary gain mechanism to protect us?
So we want to do what we want to do, the behavior, but our brain is always processing what is the potential negative consequence now or in the future. And if we deem that there's any chance of being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, judged, disappointed, failure, loss, pain, discomfort, any of those types of potential feelings, potential results, causes us to do what? To put the brakes on motivation, the motive for the action, put the brakes on behavior, the motor cortex in the brain, and then what do? We then go do something else that we feel is safer and easier for us because we already know what that behavior will give us. And usually we will move towards something pleasurable, something that's common, something that we've always done. Listen, if you
Good afternoon, guys. How's it going today? Are we taking our defeats, are we taking our struggles and turning them into triumphs, or at least thinking about it? If we're not, or haven't had some success today, don't give up. This is where belief and determination steps in. This is where you have to remind yourself of how powerful your thoughts are. So go back at it again. If the day's not over for you, or if you are simply thinking about something that has happened, remember, you have a chance to learn from it now, but you have to believe that you can learn from it. You have to never give up on thinking about how you can learn from it. And that will turn this defeat, this loss, this pain that you may be going through, this challenge, it'll turn it into a victory. And it'll continue to build and build. But just don't give up and continue to believe that you can do it. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
How many of you get to the afternoon and start to feel tired, lethargic, fatigued? You want to take a nap, but then you look at your to-do list and you realize you still have 77 things left to do. The first and easiest thing we can do is hydrate. I know it doesn't sound like rocket science and it isn't one of those clever hacks, but it can make a huge difference. Alkaline water specifically has a much bigger impact on your energy levels as well, so I try to stick to that. Chances are when you're feeling tired, you're going to want to reach for something with fats and carbs. I know when I get tired, I want to reach for some chocolate, some donuts, maybe a bagel, but that's not really what your body needs. What you need is a high protein snack. And so you want to turn towards something like fruits, nuts, seeds, anything that you actually may not want at that moment. You may not want to taste it, but I promise you, you'll feel much better for it. Now, if you're a tea lover, you already know the benefits of a hot cup of tea. But if you're not, I want to let you know that certain teas have herbs and adaptogens that help your body get back up to balance. So if you're feeling stressed, they'll de-stress you. If you're feeling anxiety, they can lower that down. And on top of that, the art of taking a cup of tea, inhaling the scent, feeling it in your body, and then looking at the color gives you that sense of pause that you need in the day and re-energizes you immediately. I recently did a test to check my vitamins, and I realized that I was really deficient in vitamin D. The doctor explained to me that because of the color of my skin, no matter how much time I spend in the sun, I need to be taking vitamin D. Now, she was actually shocked that I could even get out of bed. That's how much vitamin D is connected to our energy levels. So if you're starting to feel fatigued a bit earlier than usual, get a vitamin D check and start taking some vitamin D.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Jay Shetty, and my take on his top 10 rules for success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, learn from the past.
Learn from the past, but don't live there. This is actually a picture of Don Shula, a famous NFL coach, if you like NFL, one of the most well-respected NFL coaches, and he had this great theory. Well, not theory, practice. He gave all his players 24 hours only to celebrate a success or cry over a loss. He said, you've got 24 hours to feel your emotions. 24 hours to be successful, champion it, have a celebration, whatever you want to do. You've only got 24 hours. Make the most of that 24 hours. And if you're going to cry, I'm giving you 24 hours. After that, we forget about it. And the reason why I love this statement is this statement, learn from the past but don't live there, is usually used as saying our past is negative. But I want to apply it to the positive as well. Often we sit back and with nostalgia reflect on our best memories, right? And this nostalgic thing makes us still live in the past, and it doesn't necessarily let us build for the future. One of my favorite examples of it is when Steve Jobs went back to Apple. He went in there, and the first thing he did is that he crushed the museum that they'd built of all the history Apple had, because he said he didn't want to be working for a company that was built on just all of this past recognition and success. He wanted to be building a company of the future. He got rid of this big museum they had in the entrance of Apple when he went back after losing his job the first time. And so this is what I'm talking about. Let's not live in the past, right? Let's learn from the past, but not live there. And they did some great studies with armies. They did it with the US Army, and they did this with the Israel Defense Forces. And I'm sure you do this at work. So they did after-action reviews. But I'd love for you to do this in your own life. So they found that when they had two groups of soldiers, one group of soldiers reflected on only the failures of all of their actions, and the other group reflected on the failures and their successes. They found, after doing this for a certain amount of time, they found that the soldiers that focused on both the failures and successes not only performed better in future tasks, they were better mentally situated to actually inspire and empower their colleagues as well. So when you're reflecting, don't just learn from the past by learning from the failures, learn from the successes as well. Build them into that, because we start developing a story and a pattern for life.
Rule number 3, have a schedule.
I spent years of my life working really hard from Monday to Friday, only to have to wake up on a Saturday to do all my cleaning. Not only did that take up the whole day, it made less time for social interaction, for connecting with friends and family, and even time to work on my passions. And what ended up happening is that by the time it was Monday again, the house felt unclean and I felt like I'd made no progress. Initially, we all believe that doing it in one day seems like the best method. It's out of sight, out of mind. You don't have to think about it for the whole week, and in one day you get it sorted. The challenge with that is that in your mind, it also feels like a bigger mountain to climb. Scheduling it out during the week makes all the difference. Tackling small tasks, putting things back immediately after using them, washing a plate immediately after eating something makes it so much simpler. One of the best ways to do this is to create days dedicated to specific things. This makes it feel like a challenge or an experiment. So for example, a Wipe Down Wednesday. Knowing that all you have to do is wipe down your surfaces may take no more than 5 to 10 minutes. I also really love Floor Fridays. Now the floor can sometimes take a bit longer, but still scheduling out around 30 minutes to do that could make all the difference. And if you live with more than one person, you can divide these days and these areas between you so that you can make it simpler and easier to handle and tackle. There's quite a few benefits to this. When we do the same thing at the same time on the same day every single week, it becomes so much easier for the mind to tackle that task. When we divide and dissect our tasks up in this way, we avoid burnout. We avoid feeling like we have this big, huge mountain to climb and solve, and we start tackling elements every single day.
Rule number 4, be present.
When you're feeling anxious, what's happening is that your mind is either rushing to the past or it's predicting and projecting the future. So you're either anxious about something that you experienced before, or you're feeling really nervous and anxious about something that might or could happen in the future. The best way to come back into the present moment is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. You want to start off by looking around wherever you are and noticing the 5 things you can see. It could be the windows, the walls, the ceilings. You then want to focus on the 4 things you can touch. It could be something you're wearing and you really want to feel the texture. It could be what you're sitting on. Just noticing it and really grounding yourself in holding on to that. Then it's about 3 things you can hear. It could be nothing. It could be white noise. Then the 2 things you can smell, inhale. It could be a scent you're wearing. It could be a flower. And then finally, the 1 thing you can taste. When you practice this, it brings you back into the present moment. and helps you not focus on the anxiety or the nervousness, but on taking action from exactly where you are.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, don't seek validation.
There was a CEO of a very large car manufacturer, and he was known to be extremely successful, very productive, very effective. But the one thing he was failing at is that his employees really didn't like working for him because he worked late. How many of you feel that way? Oh, perfect. That's good. So no one here finishes late. All everyone's managers are in the room. Whichever way you want to take it, it's up to you, right? It's up to you. I don't know. That was one of his challenges, that his employees hated work for him because they all left late because of him. He used to work till 10 p.m. every evening, so they would leave just after him. True story, right? They used to leave just after him. So one of his assistants, she came and said this to him. She said, morale's a bit down. Everyone's struggling at work. We're losing a few people are quitting their work. People, they're not well, they don't feel like their health is being taken care of, they're not spending enough time with their families. You really need to consider this. He said, okay, leave it with me, we'll figure it out. From the next week, on a Monday, this gentleman who left at 10 p.m. every night, got up out of his desk at 6 p.m. He packed his bags, switched off his computer, left the office, jumped into his car, and all the employees at this time are like peeking out the window, just like making sure, like figuring out where is this guy going. He pulls into his beautiful car, pulls out and drives away from the building. It was the first time it had ever happened at 6 p.m. They all decided to wait till 7 p.m. before they left. They waited and they left. On Tuesday, the same thing happened. They looked out the window again. He left at 6 p.m. again. This time they waited till 6:45 and they left. They did the same thing, and this happened for 3 months, where he left at 6 p.m. every day. 3 months later, his assistant, who'd made him aware of this challenge, she came back to him and she said to him, I'm really confused about something. She said, you've been leaving 4 hours earlier every single day, but you're not behind on your calls, you're not behind on your emails, and you're still performing at the same level, if not better, than when you were leaving on time. And she said, how are you managing to do this? Are you working at home? Well, how are you managing this? And he said, let me tell you something interesting. He said, every day, I get into my car at 6 p.m., I drive out. He said, I take a drive for an hour. He said, I take that drive, I listen to music, I re-energize. He said, I sometimes go for a bit of a walk at the park as well. He said, I come back fresher at 7 p.m. and I work for 3 more hours. And he said, if it helps them knowing that I've left at 6 p.m. so that they can have a better life and have the values that they want and value what they want to give their time to, that doesn't mean I've got to give up what I value my time to. He said, I love my work. I love being here till 10 p.m. I'm extremely ambitious. I love being here. But they should also love being where they are. And that to me is an incredible example of how someone actually lives, foregoing the perception of others. Even though he changed his own life to help other people, they'll never perceive him that way. They just think he's changed his mind and he goes home early. They don't realize the struggle that he's putting in. And that's what I've realized. Whether you're putting in struggle or sacrifice, never look for the validation or approval of others to validate that sacrifice or that struggle, because they don't need to understand anyway. It's always been your inner journey. It's always been part of your inner growth. And I remember when I made a decision to become a monk after business school, all my friends were like, what the hell are you doing, right? We just finished, and everyone was going off to work at Goldman Sachs and different banks and consulting firms, etc. I think a few people came to Google as well. And they all said to me, they said, what do you mean you're becoming a monk? Like, what does that mean? Like, who graduates and thinks about that? And I remember having to detach. And when I reflect, and I'd love for you to do this, reflect on some of the best decisions you've made on your life. Ask yourself, what decision did you make? What did people say about it? And what was going on in your mind? I've learned through doing that exercise, it's a much longer exercise, it can take days, and we do it in our coaching exercises. I've learned that the best decisions in my life have been the biggest risks. Everyone's disagreed with me, but I've been hell-bent on making it happen. And so now when I see an opportunity like that, I do it. Because I've realized that that's the pattern of the philosophy of my life. When I make decisions that are big risks, no one agrees with me, and it doesn't fit with what society's saying, those work out to be my best decisions in life. And I'm not saying that that's your pattern. I'm saying that you have a pattern and a rhythm as well. And it's part of your journey to find it.
Rule number 6, prepare for the next day.
After I've completed my work day, when I finished all of my tasks, the last thing I do is check my schedule for the next day. Now, I'm one of those people that follows their schedule to a T. I believe it makes life simple. When I get my schedule out and look at the next day, I can think about how I'm going to feel. Have I got too much or too little on that? Do I want to add or edit something? It gives me perspective and allows me to get a glance on the next day so I can rearrange or reorganize based on the energy I feel today. Sometimes we feel so tired and exhausted, but without making that change and edit, we take that exhaustion in the next day. The other reason why I like looking ahead is that it gives me an opportunity to mentally prepare. I may have a podcast the next day and there's a guest that I'm really excited about and I may have to calm my nerves. Or sometimes it's an event or a meeting that I'm looking forward to and I just want to go over the bullet points before I go to bed. It gives me an opportunity to rehearse the day in advance, and often I'll even sit and do a short visualization just to imagine how tomorrow will look.
Rule number 7, connect to the right story.
Terry Pratchett, a famous author, whether you've read his stuff or not, a famous author, he said that people feel that stories are defined by people, but actually it's the other way around. People are defined by stories. When you're listening to me today, I've shared so many stories with you because we define ourselves by the stories we tell ourselves on a daily basis. The story you wake up to will be the story that will be the story of your day. Right? If you wake up and you tell yourself a positive story, you'll have a positive day. You wake up, tell yourself a negative story, you'll have a negative day. Positive and negative thoughts are like seeds that either grow weeds or plants, right? They grow inside of us throughout the day. Anytime you plant something, it's like planting a seed. And the more you water it, the more you think about it, it grows. And of course, if it's negative, it's like a weed. And it starts to grow and grow and grow, and of course won't bear fruits. So really think about that. Tell yourself the right stories, connect with the right stories, because ultimately, the universe is made up of stories, not atoms and numbers, right? We all love stories, we breed stories. Your life is a living story that you're writing every day. And I genuinely mean that.
Rule number 8, use scents and music.
A lot of the time, we're trying to control anxiety up here. And what I find is hard about that is that if you feel like you've got brain fog or you're feeling cloudy, it becomes really difficult to find clarity. I find using external things can be huge. For me, I love diffusers and candles because a diffuser is infusing the whole environment with a beautiful scent, and it truly changes your mind. If you walk into a space, just think of a spa. As soon as you walk in, you feel different because of the scent. It could just be a normal room, but the scent of lavender, sandalwood, any of these essential oils can truly calm your body right down. Some people feel that silence creates anxiety, and some people feel that sound creates anxiety. Sometimes I like complete silence. It helps me relax and really hear my thoughts and the thoughts that I want to focus on. And sometimes I need to turn on some meditation music, some ambient music, just to have that impact on me. Please use music in your environments, in different rooms in your home, to help you achieve different emotions and feelings that you want to feel at that time.
Rule number 9, clean.
When I first joined the ashram, I was asked to do a lot of cleaning. And in the beginning, I found it tedious and a waste of time. What if I could be serving humanity? What if I could be reading a book? What if I could be studying and making notes? And I had all these excuses in my mind. But of course, I'd chosen to be a monk, and therefore I was encouraged to clean. And I started to find that cleaning did so much for my mind. And recently I looked at some studies that actually back that up. There are so many benefits of cleaning in a physical space that will also clear out your mind. A research study from UCLA by Saxby and Repeti found that cleaning gives you a better sense of control over your environment and engages your mind in a repetitive activity that can have a calming effect.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is have fun.
I'm so moving. This would be funny and fast, wouldn't it? So run around it. We're like, just
I think this is
throw.
the fun of it. Okay, so we did it. Here it goes. Really proud of what we did. It was fun. It was fun
It
doing
was
it.
fun.
Good evening, guys. One of the most exciting things that drives me every single day to continue living, laughing, and loving my way to infinite mind wealth, and the reason why I'm trying to share my journey in life with you in the hopes of helping you, is because I know that we can take our struggles and turn them into our triumphs. We can take our pain and turn it into our greatest pleasure. And I want to share with you my personal story briefly. The reason why I'm so passionate about the power and control of our minds and how I believe it's possible is because I've had challenges with regards to my mind. I've had struggles. I've had pains, defeats in life, but I'm using them as fuel now. And I want you to as well. And I've learned from so many people that have done that. So if they can do it, we can do it. So let's continue that as we're on our path. Have a great evening, everyone.
Trauma is very delicate and we all have it. You rip off the Band-Aid too fast, you'll get blown out. It'll be too scary at once. We all have the capacity to be of service to others, but the first thing we have to put first is a service to ourselves. I write my books for myself first. I do this work for myself first.
Believe Nation, I am super happy to have the one and only Gabby Bernstein, author of the new book that is now a New York Times best-selling book. Congratulations. Happy days. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, my love. Thank you. Nice to be with you.
So listen, in the spirit of vulnerability and authenticity, I always get uncomfortable before doing interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we've had like some of the biggest names on the channel, every time before coming on, maybe it's because I've been shy or introverted or afraid of disappointing people. Before doing an interview, there's always this like discomfort inside me to get ready. And in going through your book, on page 42, you said something that kind of stopped me in my tracks. So you said, the feelings that make us most uncomfortable reveal to us what we need to heal.
Yeah.
And in reading that, I had to close the book. I looked at the cover. There's Gabby Bernstein looking back at me, kind of giving me a big hug, first of all, for that.
Yeah.
But then also it made me think, I wonder what big T or little T, trauma I've got. Maybe it's what protectors do I have? And maybe we'll get into some of this language. But how do you guide people from they're uncomfortable with something? How do you guide them to figuring out what the trauma was that is causing it that they need to heal from?
Well, first of all, I want to just acknowledge how brave you are to even go there and to recognize, my discomfort in this moment may be revealing something to me. That's epic. That's amazing. That's actually the first step to your question, which is how do we begin to look at what we might be running from? And the first step is just to witness that there's something to look at, to give voice to the discomfort, to notice the patterns that are destructive in our life, to be in the non-judgmental witness of what's coming up for us. When we have the bravery to just start to step back and look and start to take an inventory of those triggers and the ways that we get activated and how we feel when we get activated and how we react when we get activated, that is the absolute first and bravest step. It's the bravery to wonder what might be underneath there. Literally what you just did. That's step one. And all throughout the book, I give these practices for how you can slowly and safely titrate into those subconscious unresolved wounds that we all have impermissible shame, impermissible rage, impermissible experiences that we never want to uncover from our history. All of us, whether it's big T trauma or small T trauma. Big T being having lived through a war, having lived through a catastrophic event, or being abused, or sexual assault. Small T trauma being told you were stupid when you were in 6th grade, or a family member telling you that you're not good enough, or not feeling supported or seen by your parents. So we all have trauma. It's just, how do we show up for it? And so that first step is to be the witness. And then throughout the book, I give more and more guidance on how to slowly and safely go into it and come out, and go into it and come out, because it's not the kind of thing, Evan, that you want to just rip the Band-Aid off too quickly. That wouldn't be safe.
What I love about it is it feels like it's not just examining your life and your trauma in a non-judgmental way, which almost kind of feels like step one, but you take it a step further to almost thank them, like to acknowledge the protector and say, hey, that actually served me.
Yeah.
And to say that it was a positive, which is just feels very different and very weird compared to what most people suggest. It's like,
Yeah.
I have to go through the book again more slowly. Like,
That's
really
right.
gotta
I mean,
spend
this is the
time
kind
on
of
this.
book. This is the kind of book you should go back to multiple times. But here's the thing I would say. So we all have these ways of protecting ourselves from those impermissible feelings. And in my language, trained in internal family systems therapy, it is known as protector parts. And so our protectors are the controller, or the anxiety in your case. The anxiety of getting on the call with me is like another protector, because it's saying, I'm going to be anxious so that I don't have to face what's underneath the anxiety. The ways that we react and respond to things with picking up a drink or a drug, or trying to manage every corner of our life, or workaholism, or even just numbing out. These are protectors. They're parts of us that have been perfectly placed right here, right now, right in this moment from a historical experience. And they're there from childhood to the present, creating a world where we can seemingly feel safe, but we don't. It's a protection from that impermissible feeling that's beneath it. And so our work is to start to, in this book, begin to become aware and available to those protector parts. And to your point, to speak to them and to notice them. And how different would we be if we looked at our addiction, or our controlling mechanisms, or our anxiety, and said, I have so much compassion towards you. And I'm curious about what might be underneath all that. And I just want to be a calm presence for you, speaking to those parts of ourselves as if they were other identities. And just being in that courage to just have that connection. How different would we be? Rather than just being in the reaction all the time, what if we started to create a relationship with those reactive parts of us?
It's just, yeah, I'm having goosebumps as you're talking. It's a totally different perspective and way of looking at it. I think we look back on our lives at the moment and say, well, I should have done better and I should have known more, and we beat ourselves up. And then some will recommend, okay, just non-judgmental, just look back. But you're actually basically looking at it as a positive, say, hey, thank you for protecting me. I needed to do that to save myself at that moment.
That's another layer. You know, I've talked in this book very openly about my recovery from cocaine addiction, and my recovery from remembering childhood trauma, and living through postpartum depression and suicidal ideation at that time. And I can look back at all of those parts, the part of me that was the cocaine addict, and the part of me that spun out of control right before I remembered the trauma, and the part of me that was in extreme anxiety during my postpartum period, and say thank you to all of those parts, because they were an up-leveling. They were an opportunity for me to look closer. And they also had an important role of keeping me safe from experiencing impermissible feelings too quickly, too fast, and too much at once. So really seeing and honoring and respecting all of the ways that we've been, no matter how shameful they may feel.
Yeah. Let me ask you another uncomfortable question. So I had a dream about you 2 nights ago.
I'm not even laughing, because I can't tell you how many DMs I get from people being like, I dreamt about you. And that's what happens when you go to bed with millions of people at once.
Yeah.
Literally, like my face is in their nightstand, or maybe in bed with them when you put your book on their shelf. and they just start dreaming about you.
Yeah.
So you had a dream about me. Yes. Let's go on.
I mean, I've probably done that many times for people who I'm going to interview, but I've never told them that in an interview that, I dreamt about you 2 nights ago. And so here was a dream. So we're just about to go live on this show. And you politely asked me not to call you Gabby Bernstein. It's like, please don't call me Gabby Bernstein. Can you call me? And I forget the name that you wanted me to call you. And that's kind of been driving me nuts over the past 24 hours. And so I guess where that leads
was it
to,
an actual name?
yes,
or
it was a specific name. Like you said, please don't call me Gabby Bernstein on your show. Call me this. And I just forget what the this was.
Wow.
I think I was just so stressed out about don't call her Gabby Bernstein that I forgot what the name was that I was supposed to, that you asked me to call you. And it was very polite. It wasn't like anger or hate, just like, hey, would you mind calling me this instead? So I guess maybe question from my dream, which I've never asked somebody, have you ever used a stage name or a pen name or an alter ego to create content or thought about it?
What an interesting question. Well, my name actually did come up in conversation this morning. So I'm working with the branding agency who's redesigning my website, and I've never done any proper branding exercises. I've just been full speed ahead. So my brand is really all over the place. And so we decided that don't call me Gabby Bernstein, call me Gabby, is what we said today.
Huh. Interesting.
So that's not necessarily the name I shared with you, but it is actually a conversation I had this morning. And so I think that, have I ever used a pen name? No, I've always been myself. I think that's actually part of why I do what I do and what I do. Why what I do works is that I tell the truth about myself. And in the recounting of my truth, I give people permission to recognize their own.
Cool. I love it. There you go. Evan's dream. That's the answer. I love it. Let's talk about your therapist for a second. I mean, you're pro therapy. You've helped reduce the stigma around therapy. You've helped normalize therapy, that you don't have to go through whatever you're struggling with alone. Like, don't suffer in silence. You thank your therapist, in the acknowledgements of your book, which nobody does. And if they do, it's kind of as a joke. But
actually, I thanked 2 of my therapists. I actually almost dedicated this book to my therapist, but it ended up my husband deserved the dedication, but I almost dedicated it to her. Yeah.
Well, and you've talked about how therapy has like literally saved your life. So question, when your therapist said who would play you in a movie, what did you say and why?
Well, I actually joked with her, Evan. I was like, who's going to play you, to her? Because like she's such a big role in this storyline that I believe will probably be a movie. I think it absolutely could be a film. Who would play me though? That's a good question. Let me think. It has to be somebody that can play young and 40, because it's like there's this sort of like decades of storyline. And it's nice if it's the same person all the way through. And it has to be somebody that really gets this content. I'm gonna sit with it for a moment, and I'm gonna let you know. I'm gonna think about it.
All right, cool.
I'm gonna see what comes. Yeah.
Well, how about this? Along similar lines, who is a hero for you, dead or alive, that you look up to and say, she or he is a just giant inspiration or role model for me?
Great giant inspiration for me is my late publisher and friend, Louise Hay, Lulu, as we call her at Hay House. And I was actually just talking about Louise yesterday because we were talking about boundaries somehow. And Jessica, who's my COO, used to work for Hay House. And so she worked very closely with Louise, and she would always be at the book signing lines. And one of the things that would happen is people would often come to her because she's so soothing. And they would be on this line of thousands of people, and they'd be like, Louise, just tell me how I can save my life with this issue, and and they would just throw it all on her. And she would look at them with so much love and compassion and say, I'm going to lovingly and compassionately say no. And I think that Louise, to me, is a beautiful mentor, even in the spiritual realm, and comes through in the channeling of these books. And I think that boundary is such a valuable message for anyone now who's putting out supportive content in the world, because you might feel a lot of energy back at you, and you have to create the space to protect your own energy while being in the service of others. And there's many other reasons why Louise was such a profound inspiration for me, but that just happened yesterday.
I love Louise. From the first time I saw one of her videos was, wow, this woman is amazing. We've done a couple tribute videos to her on the channel. And I remember thinking, imagine if Louise was 35 or 40 or 45 now, and the message she would have on YouTube or Instagram, and the ability to have, obviously she built a huge company, massively successful, but the impact that I think a lot of people don't know who she is. She's kind of like just before everything started to pop. Similar with like
before everything started to pop for our generation, she was pretty popped for her generation, right?
Sure. But like all the videos of her there's not that much video content, and it's
right.
It's older Louise Hay, which is still great, but still not tons of content.
And I don't think that she started her career until she was in her 50s, I believe. Yeah. So that's why she's, older in most of these videos. What would she say now?
Yeah, well, just I think she would say a lot of the same things. It's just the impact that she could have. Like she would be doing a daily YouTube show or daily IG live series, a daily podcast, and just how much more impact. Like she would be a household name because of not just the message, but the heart and soul and care that she has. I mean,
that's why books are amazing, because books can carry your legacy forever. I will pass whenever I pass, knowing that I've left behind currently right now 9 books, and hopefully I'll have many more before I die. But I know that when I leave here, I will leave a lot behind me. And that's why a book, I think, is so profound, and a video, and what we're doing here, and, all of it.
It's going to be holograms and VR and
100%. That's right.
We'll get there. Okay, talking about service. So a lot of the stuff in your book is obviously healing self. And there was a lot of new terms for me to get used to, reparenting yourself and protectors and the concept of being more compassionate towards yourself. And so I guess if you're not familiar with those concepts, it takes a little bit longer to get through the book, although it's a very short, it's a very short packed read here. But service is what I was curious about. We're in this text group with some amazing friends. People have done amazing things. In the past 48 hours has been a lot of, Gabby hit the New York Times, let's go, woo, and cheering you on. And your response at 6:39 this morning was, thanks, guys. So proud the book is serving so many souls. And if you look at your YouTube and you look at your Instagram, like the theme of service just flows through everything, that it's not just about you, that you're trying to give and support and care for people. And it's real. It's not just paying lip service because it's a cool word, but it's like actually at the core of who you are. So how much does service tie into the healing process for you, or prescriptive for others as well?
Well, I think that we all have the capacity to be of service to others, but the first thing we have to put first is a service to ourselves, because my ability, my capacity to not care about the list and care about the service more, way more, and just see that, acknowledgement as a reflection of the service, is because of the profound devotional attention I've given to the service of my own self, my own soul, my own reclaiming the fragmented parts of myself and bringing them back to safety. And as a result of that transformational journey that I've been on for 42 years, but really also, since I really got sober when I was 25, I've been on this devotional journey of serving my spirit and my system, my internal system. And in the service of myself, I've been able to now sit here in the seat of self energy, of compassion, of courage, of calmness, of connectedness. And in that seat, I can just have one focus and one focus only every single day. How can you use me? That's my prayer. I wake up in the morning and I say, what miracles would you have me perform today? How can you use me? And to be a humble servant of God, of an energy beyond my own, and to be a conduit through which that messaging and that energy comes through very, very naturally, because we are in a very, very big crisis right now in the world. And it is horrific, and it's terrifying, and it's heartbreaking, and everyone's traumatized, and you can't be alive and not be traumatized right now. And I just see so clearly how my soul made the choice to come into this lifetime at the time that I did, to make the commitment to have the discomfort that I had so that I could overcome that discomfort, so that I could be here right now 42 years old, sitting grounded in the seat of my own strength and recovery, freedom and inner peace, so that I can show for everyone that I touch in whatever way I can.
Do you fully heal from the trauma?
You know, it's funny you asked that question, because I was on the Today Show last week and Hoda asked me the same question. She said, can you fully relieve yourself from this trauma, And I said to her, there's absolutely no way I would put my face on the cover of this book with the subtitle, The Guided Path from Trauma to Profound Freedom and Inner Peace, if I wasn't living in profound freedom and inner peace. And now, Evan, that doesn't mean that I don't go to therapy every single Wednesday at 4:45. If you're looking for me at 4:45 on a Wednesday, you would have to know where I am. But it does mean that I am now seated confidently in my own grace because of the commitment to my inner work. And there's no way I could have published this book without being in that grounded state. Because if I wasn't there, I would have reactivated myself while I was writing it, and I would be reactivating my readers. But because I wrote this book in that steadiness, the reader can co-regulate with my energy that's inside that book.
You know, as you're talking, what's flowing through me is I think of AA and the sponsor system, where once you've come through it, you sponsor somebody else to help them on their journey who's a little bit sooner. And that also helps you from going back down because you're serving people. Does the service now for you you don't have to write another book if you don't want to. I mean, you're called to it. But does the service part there keep you at the fully healed level? Like if you weren't serving and helping others, do you think you would slip back?
No way. I write my books for myself first.
Okay.
I do this work for myself first. The benefit of being able to do this kind of work is that you can then live to tell. And so as much as I am in the commitment and the service of others, it all starts with me.
So there's a couple of times now we've kind of led to sequence here, right? So when I talked about service, you said, yes, serve others, but you have to serve yourself first. In the book, there was also a great line talking about medication. So you've been open to say that, hey, medication saved your life. And if you need to medicate, you should do it because it gets you to a certain point, right? So page 120, everybody, medication can help get you to a safe baseline where you can be calm enough to do the deeper work, which also kind of at least leads my formula brain to think sequence. Like step one is get to a certain level. And then step two is you can go deeper. And maybe step three is service. Is that?
Well, I want to acknowledge that quote in context to the message, because I think that we live in a country and a society, and you're in a different country, but we live in, a society in the US in particular where we're often overly medicated. But that stigma, and then there's a very big wellness stigma around medication. And that stigma actually kept me from getting the support that I needed when I was living through postpartum depression and anxiety and insomnia and suicidal ideation. And I lived in that state for 4 months, if not a little bit longer. And it was only until I hit a massive bottom that I finally accepted my diagnosis and got on a medicated path. But the message in that chapter is so profound, which is that the solutions can come to you in many different forms. And I love to reference that story of the man who's drowning, and he is sent a boat, and he's like, no, I don't need a boat. I'm going to, God's going to help me. And then he's sent a helicopter. No, I don't need the helicopter. God's going to help me. And he sent a raft. I don't need that raft. God's going to help me. And then he drowns and he ends up in heaven. And he's like, God, where were you? And God's like, I sent you a boat, man. I sent you a helicopter. And so for me, I just was running from the helicopter and the boat by not taking seriously the diagnosis that I was living with and getting on the medicated path. And in my case, that medication was the boat, the helicopter, the raft, and it got me back to a baseline of safety. And in that baseline of safety, I didn't just numb out. I went diving deep into 3 therapy sessions a week and transforming the inner workings of my brain, my neural pathways, my nervous system, and my beliefs about myself. Every step of our internal journey, once we make the commitment to pick up a book like this or still listen to this kind of episode on your show, we have this desire to heal. We have a desire to be free. And so when we make that decision, we're going to be sent a lot of boats and helicopters, and we're going to be given a lot of guidance. And it's our responsibility to be brave enough to say yes to the wisdom and the guidance we receive.
You've talked about gently guiding people forward, which really, the first time I kind of heard you say it resonated, because I think a lot of the content, at least in YouTube land, I don't know if we want to call it masculine energy or alpha male energy, or if you have a problem, suck it up, stop complaining, stop whining, get off the couch and go chase down your dreams. You know, there's like a lot of that kind of, I don't know what label we would attach to it, but there's a lot of that. Hey, if you got a problem, that's just an excuse. You got to go and get to work. Where your approach is very different and amazing. And the whole concept of gently guiding people forward, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think that all people are suffering. And one of the sort of push past, get it done, move through it is another protector. It's another form of protecting us from feeling our suffering. Because it's like the more I push, the less I have to feel. So the path that I perceive to be the real healing path is to reverse that. Stop pushing and start allowing, start noticing, start feeling. And that's a slow and steady process that cannot be forced. It cannot be pushed past. It has to happen slowly and gently, because trauma is very delicate and we all have it. And it's, if like I said earlier, if you rip off the Band-Aid too fast, you'll get blown out. It'll be too scary at once. So the modalities that I speak about in this book, like somatic experiencing and EMDR and internal family systems therapy, EFT, are all very gentle practices that slowly titrate in and out and in and out. And you don't have to just dive in head first, but to trust that those subtle moments, even this most subtle moment in a therapy session or when reading the practice from this book, where you just start to feel slighter sense and sensation in and then a little bit out, that's a miracle moment. And so we have to add up those miracles.
Let's check in on the actress who would play you in a movie. Anything came to mind?
I was thinking about Claire Danes.
Claire Danes. Wow. Okay. I like that. We need to manifest Claire Danes playing Gabby Bernstein.
I'm not 100% sold on that, but there's a depth and a vulnerability that she has as an actress that I don't see often. And that would be absolutely necessary to play the role of Gabby.
I like it. Maybe along those lines, if you think back to any kind of historic situation or character where you could help them, this is obviously, I think what you're kind of doing is you're pulling all these different modalities that maybe have been around for a while, but from different cultures. You know what I mean? You're talking about breathing techniques that come from different cultures, the Japanese techniques, the voot, or I don't know how the chanting theme that you've got in the book. I was trying to do it out loud. I wasn't sure if I was getting it right or not. Tapping, like all of these modalities that have existed for a long time, but you're kind of putting them all together in one book. If you could go back though in some point in time to maybe a historical figure who you knew was suffering from trauma and help them, is there anybody that comes to mind you'd love to have a conversation with them, to not just to learn as a mentee, but to actually help them through what they're dealing with?
To be a support system for them.
Yeah, in like a time of crisis or need.
Gandhi.
Huh.
Well, I would want to stand beside and know what that kind of selflessness was, what the resonance of that was, because that kind of energy needs to be cultivated more right now. And if I could right now in this moment, just hold someone and be there as a steady presence of security, it would be for Zelensky. To just be a presence for him in particular right now. I mean, I think that we can be that presence for him and for what we're witnessing for all those souls in the Ukraine, because we have to really never underestimate the power of our presence and the power of our energy and the power of our prayer.
So for people who are looking at the news and they're seeing all these devastating things and they feel hopeless, but they want to help, but they don't know how, even that concept of saying a prayer or being present, what could we do? If somebody's watching this video, what could they do right now to help just with their presence?
Well, first and foremost, recognize that your true power lies in your presence. And the presence that you show up with is either polluting the energy of the world or it's elevating it. What we have to do is start to take ownership of what we put out, because what we put out has a ripple effect. with our child. Our child goes to school and brings that to other children. Our husband goes to work and brings that there. Our wife, and she brings it to her work, and whatever it is, it's just a ripple effect. And so we have to be a presence of steadiness and security and safety and compassion and love for all of those individuals that are in our close proximity, because they spread that. And also, never underestimate the power of our energy, because when the collective is in crisis, the biggest gift we can give when we feel powerless is the collection of calm, compassionate, courageous energy. And so that energy has resonance. And that energy also logically does things for us. It says, okay, wakes up in the morning and says, okay, go donate here. Okay, go direct message that person and help them seek refuge in your country. It just puts you in action. But it puts you in inspired action, not fear-based action. Because fear-based action is going to not be good for others or for you. So we have to really begin to settle our systems so that we can show up with that presence right now more than ever.
Last question for the people who want to thank you for all the service you've been putting out and the positivity and the vibes. If they were to pray for you tonight, people watching this video, what would you have them pray for?
Oh, Evan, what a beautiful question. It's so moving to me. I would have them just pray for me to be safe and secure so I can continue to do what I do.
I love it. The woman is Gabby Bernstein. The book is Happy Days. We will link it up in the description below. Go check it out and support this amazing woman. Thank you, Gabby. Appreciate you.
You're an amazing interviewer. I've never really, maybe we've done something a long time ago, but you're excellent at interviewing. I just want to acknowledge you for that. It's beautiful.
Trust my dream.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you don't need to be anxious before your interviews. You've got the secret sauce, dude. You got it, man.
I'll thank my protectors. I got to acknowledge and thank my protectors.
Yeah. No, but you're very, very, very good at it, and you're doing such beautiful work. Thank you, Evan.
Cool. Thank you, Gabby.
Bye, baby.
If you want to see the one-on-one I did with Mel Robbins, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
I hate you, Evan. I hope you lose, Evan. I hope your business goes bankrupt, Evan. Evan, you're a terrible person. I spent the first 40 some years of my life trying to be somebody else.